What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Verdependent podcast where we depend on the Verde and Black for our everyday vibes. This week, we relive the Open Cup comeback against El Paso, discuss Austin's loss at FC Cincinnati, and look ahead to home matchups versus Atlanta United and Vancouver Whitecaps before closing out the episode with the stoppage time rundown of the hottest Austin FC, MLS, and World Footy storylines of the past week. I'm Logan Bartlett.
What's up, world? This is Paul Flates.
Mr. Worldwide. Last week, we appealed to our listeners to help us get to 50 reviews on Spotify by the end of May. We were sitting nice at 32 then. Now we're at 35. Hey. Listeners, again, we just ask for your help with that. We appreciate y'all. We know you're out there. This will help us grow as a podcast. And we figured, we might as well start asking politely. So
That's right. That's right.
We appreciate y'all. If you've already sent your stars, thank you so much. If you haven't, you have our permission to get that review in while Paul gives us his preheated take this week. Paul, take it away. Preheated takes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So looking positively and looking at our main attacking contributor of, arguably the season so far, Owen Wolf, I have that he will claim the third spot in terms of all-time assists in Austin FC history by the start of the summer transfer window. And just to put that in perspective, he's at 13, tied with Alex Ring. He just needs one more to claim that third place to himself. Yeah. Only behind Sebastian Driussi and Diego Fagundes, mind you.
Yep. You're giving an extremely, this is a high risk take, G. Yeah, you're real high risk here, Yeah.
I need a win somewhere, bro.
I know. Give me one assist in all competitions by July, please. Right. I hear that. We need something positive. Mine is, sure, let's say positive too. Austin will earn at least 1 point by the end of this weekend. We have 2 matches, 2 opportunities, both in front of the home fans. Mm-hmm. Give us 1 point. Yeah. Give us something, please.
Hey, man. That's better than 0. We'll take that.
The bar is so low right now. Just like, let me get a win, because if y'all aren't going to win, I'm going to win my preheated take prediction at least.
Bingo, bro.
And speaking of which, I'm sure I'll mention this at least 2 or 3 more times throughout the episode. But I think, was it last week or the week before, I said my preheated take was that Bukhari would be the first DP to consistently see the bench if things don't get better.
Yeah, that was last week.
Yeah, so last week, 2 games since then, he's been on the bench both games. I'm not saying I'm kind of like omnipotent or anything, but, that's a win. So, shall we talk about this Open Cup comeback?
Let's do it, bro.
Let's do it, man. Last week, Austin almost collapsed in Cup play again before sneaking by with a 3-2 comeback win against USL side El Paso Locomotive. To start last week's episode, we dropped our post-match clip from this match. And to summarize our takeaways, we got the win. It wasn't good enough. We got to talk shit. So, let's start it. Austin fielded a competitive lineup of regular starters against El Paso, including Uzuni, Vasquez, and Heinz Ike, but left the pitch at halftime with a 2-goal deficit and echoes of boos from a half-capacity Q2 stadium. What went wrong in the first 45?
I mean, so many ways that you can look at this, man. But I think from a tactical perspective, it felt like the roster on paper should have taken care of the job. We opened up strong. We had some chances early at the beginning. I mean, I know I was coming in late to the game, but I was keeping up, on the Paramount Plus stream, and looked like there were some chances early on from both Uzuni and Brandon. But getting caught on the counter again, we've mentioned this on the podcast, multiple weeks at this point, but that is ultimately the way to get at Austin FC, right? Is drilling hard on the counter. But I almost want to be cliche here a little bit, and because it's a cup match and because it's lower division quality, I mean, El Paso was just up for it, and I think we maybe didn't respect them enough early on to like really get after it. Folks can argue that the referee maybe didn't have the best control of the game, but I would argue that he was letting them play for most of the match, and there was clear precedent in terms of the physicality that was being allowed on the pitch that night. But just not enough respect and just general front-footedness that we would have liked to have seen against this kind of opposition in the first, Open Cup play of 2025 for Austin.
I'm glad you bring up that point, because there's just something with this club, or maybe with just players in general. I don't know. We have a new coach. We have mostly new leadership outside of Stuver and whatnot. And I wouldn't say he was necessarily the reason for this in the past. This being the, like, I don't know, tepid approach to these kinds of games from this club, where we just, I don't know if we're nervous, shaky feet, overly confident. Like, I don't know what it is. It's one or the other. It's some extreme of either we're overly confident and we don't respect the opponent, or we're truly nervous because it's cup competition. The pressure's there. Maybe you're overhyping yourself, overpsyching yourself, knowing that the USL side has almost nothing to lose. If they win, that's, it's a miracle. It's going to be a big story. If they lose, they fought their ass off. It was expected, right? So they have nothing, to lose, and to use that cliche. I don't know what it is, man. Like, it seemed we just did not, like, tactically did not adjust. We've talked, to your point, we've talked about this week in and week out at this point, the last month and a half or so. All teams need to do is counter. They just need, and counter can mean many things, but just like, be fast, quick on the counter attack. The moment you get the ball after letting Austin have possession, go. Vertical, run up and down the field, pass it long, get the ball forward as soon as possible. And it works more times than not against us. Works meaning they score, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. 2 goals quickly in the second half. Both counters, both just very literally just guys being fast is what it came down to, just outpacing us. Good placement, an unfortunate deflection for Cleveland on that second goal, where it's, just on the side of his leg there, and he has to get down and just kind of hits it straight down to the ground, and the momentum takes it. But I don't know, man, it's just lazy. And, we'll get into this. This is a Cincinnati game, but the defense just seems a step behind in every facet. When they're running vertically, chasing down attackers, when they finally get set and they give people too much space to do something with the ball, not take that step soon enough. So it seems like it has to be a mindset thing at this point. And, we can look historically with our club and say that, like, we've never been in great form, or we haven't consistently been in great form as we enter these tournaments. Like, because we've had one good season, and otherwise, like, looking long term, our form has never been like, we're on a streak, we go into this cut play, just another game, let's dominate it, go home, rest up, dominate the next game. It's just never been that confidence going into these competitions. So I'm thinking it's more of the same, and just, I don't know, a lack of flexibility and agility by our coaching staff and by our players to just respond to the obvious thing that's beating us time and time again. Brandon Vasquez got Austin on the scoreboard, though, in the second half. In the 73rd minute, off a beautifully placed through ball by Owen Wolff, Uzuni scored his first goal at Q2 just 3 minutes later off of a Vasquez assist, and Vasquez scored the game winner in the 80th minute off another Owen Wolff pass. Austin moves on to the round of 16 with this win, but in less than convincing fashion. What do you think the narrative is surrounding this match?
I mean, the narrative is going to take form for different fans, that view this differently. If you're the optimistic type, that's almost kind of sympathetic to the cause and to Nico Estevez and all that. You're going to say, like, hey, like this team showed grit and was able to come back, from a 2-0 down at half. But if you're the type of fan that has kind of been skeptical from the start, either of the roster build or the hire of Nico Estevez, you're looking at, this result and kind of going, this is my validation. This is everything that I've been saying up to this point, fraud watch and all this. I mean, clear, you're not convinced. And to either side, or there's some blend in the middle, right? I would just say that the narrative, I have to take it kind of positive here, because we're still in. We were able to snatch that, in the second half with our, arguably, more aggressive lineup there of MLS starters. But it doesn't feel good, man, And I think that's just something that it's still, like you were saying, be it a mentality thing, be it a roster not quite gelling or a system not quite getting settled
Hmm.
situation with this team. It's just, it doesn't ever feel like from minute 1 to minute 90 plus, this team was always in control. And, you know, that's, I think, something 5 years in, fans are just clamoring and
Yeah.
begging this team to give them, because, you know, this was a game that, you know, that should have been the case, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. The control piece is key. And that's where, going back to that post game clip that we put in last week's episode, that's where our frustration came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
The grit, I'll celebrate that, right? The team showed grit. Owen Wolf came in, changed the game. Bukhari did his thing to give the attack space. Vasquez put it together, contributed in all 3 goals. Great. I'll never
Yeah.
complain about goals, right? But it's just not good enough, in my opinion. You can't go down 2-0 at home against El Paso. You
Mm-hmm.
just can't, right? And we did. And that's just not good enough. I'm not I can't be happy with that result, even though it's a win. I've said many times a win is a win, right? But in this case, a win is more than a win. It's frustration, it's disappointment, it's unease, right?
Yeah.
And if I want to flip that on its head, I'm hoping that this 45 minutes of adversity that the team faced in the first half really kicked something into gear there, where in the second half they responded. The Cincinnati result is what it is, but just moving forward like that, knowing that the team can pull themselves out of the mud that way, um, just in a competitive game, regardless of the quality of competition, that has to be a positive. And I'm hoping that it's a positive, right? And that's my, um,
Manifestation.
yeah, my positive manifestation is that like the club will take that moment and say like, great, we did this. We can come back from this. We have to be better, so we don't have to do that, but we know
Mm-hmm.
we can, right? And we know we can score goals in bunches. We know that what we're doing can work. Um, yeah, man. So it's just the narrative is mixed, to your point, right? It's however people are digesting this and looking forward, and I think the results in the next few games will help shape that narrative too, right? Like if we continue to be in bad form, we go to we host Houston next week and it goes poorly, right? Like all these things, and we don't move on in the Open Cup, like that will continue to paint this narrative that's building in this poor streak of form.
Yeah.
To close this out, I mean, I can bookend it here. In 2023, right, Austin bowed out of the Open Cup when faced with MLS competition at home in the round of 16, and our only ever matchup against Chicago Fire. That's essentially the narrative that is happening now. We're hosting in the round of 16 an MLS side in Houston Dynamo, and we'll see what comes of that. We'll talk more about that next week ahead of that game. We
Mm-hmm.
have a lot more to cover before then, so we're going to save that. But it's just shaping up to be a repeat of what we saw just a couple years ago, and at least in terms of the scenario, right? We'll see what the outcome turns out to be. So, should we talk about the Cincinnati game?
Yeah. Let's do
All right,
it.
a little halftime conversation here. Austin fell 2-1 on the road at Cincinnati. Bukhari saw the bench for the second straight game, right, as I mentioned, and Estevez trotted out a 5-3-2 to start a match for the first time this season. All that tinkering, and we're still sitting precariously in 8th place, just one result away from being out of playoff contention. In the grand scheme of our recent stretch of poor form, where does a road loss against a quality Cincinnati team rank?
Yeah, man. I think this is a short answer for me, where I just gently tuck this result in the yes, I'm bummed, but I'm not surprised folder. In the the grand scheme, like you were saying, of these 2-1 away defeats, because over the course of Austin FC's history, I mean, I can't count the total times that we've lost on the road 2-1, but I know there have been
Yeah.
some big disappointments. I know we've lost at Dallas a few times 2-1. We've lost in Houston. I look back to gosh, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where this side in Cincinnati was. I don't think anyone really had Austin pulling this upset. It would have been great, but we kind of knew what to expect. They've been
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders and have been a consistently top of the East side for going on 2 seasons at this point now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think to say that you're disappointed or what have you. To each their own. But ultimately, this was one of those where I'm surprised that we held them down to only 2 goals. Evander was class as usual, and we
Right.
can argue till the cows come home about whether Evander was properly marked or not. But um, Nico said this in the presser. The way that we lost was better than we have on the road earlier in the season. So I'll
Yeah.
give them that, but still not good enough.
Yeah, I agree. And we have 4 points since the start of April. I think that's 5 or 6 matches. And Cincinnati is one. If I were to go back in time and look at that, I would have said, yeah, if we get any result there, a point, I'd be okay. Especially knowing what we know now. They're
Right.
tied for top of the table in the East, and I think in the league, right? They're top of the league right now. Evander playing like an MVP
Mm-hmm.
candidate, Um, you step back and you look at this game and you say, okay, if we go into an away game and one player beats us, yes, it's frustrating, but I'm not going to be too mad. You know,
Right.
Frustrated we lost, but Evander single-handedly won that game for them, right? Not to say that we shut everybody else down and we played this amazing game, but you know, one slow step from Zvatok and then a perfectly placed pass to a streaking winger. It's like, yeah, Bidu could have done something different, but like that's a split-second decision that, if that ball is an inch shorter or further, like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different scenario. So, if we're going to lose to a player like Evander every once in a while away, it is what it is. I think it's more frustrating given the stretch that we're in, right? With just 4 points in
Sure.
6 weeks now. But, tuck this one away, make up for it coming back home to Q2, and I won't think about it in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
You referenced this, or you kind of set this up already. So Phil West of Verde All Day rightfully stood his ground in both the post-game presser and in follow-up articles when he critiqued Nico Estevez's claim that Austin did a fine job of marking Evander, MVP candidate Evander, who contributed both goals for the home side. Analytics continue to be referenced by Nico as proof the team is just underperforming and that the strategy is sound and the ship will righten, right? With the eye test proving otherwise, do you think the coaching staff is overvaluing analytics rather than facing the results that we're seeing game to game?
Yeah, this question at first was kind of confusing to me because I was like, well, I don't hear them enough saying that like this was, a game that we should have won. Obviously, they like to mention the chances that were created and all that stuff. But for me, I see this more as Nico defending, his players and the team that is trying to implement his ideas. Naturally so, right? I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you're the mastermind behind these performances, that's kind of your prerogative there. I think for
Right.
me, man, my concern is ultimately going to lie with this coaching staff's inability to get the most out of, our front three, and if we can whittle it down to just the highest, paid, or the club's highest signing in Mirto Zuni.
Yeah.
That's where, for me, that concern lies, is because, I had to kind of inject myself back with his Granada highlights to remember that this dude could finish from multiple spots on the pitch, and to then go back and look at his missed opportunities in the Verde and Black. It's just like, what's going on here? Because he's proven that he can score from different areas of the 18-yard box.
Yeah.
He's getting into those positions in an Austin jersey, but it's just not happening. So I would argue that that's less about, yes, I said that Nico and the staff are having a hard time getting the most out of him, but like he's arriving in the box. It's for whatever reason, he's just not finishing. And that goes across our entire front line.
Yeah.
And so that's where, for me, man, it's just, we have to figure this out because,
Yeah.
I think John mentions this in the player interview after, Nico finishes up in the post-match press conference, but the chances are being created there. It's just a matter of the finishing. And that's just been the narrative the whole time. And so, I don't know, man. It's not an over reliance on the analytics, but it is it is getting frustrating to hear, you know, that it's like,
Yeah. It almost seems
yeah.
it's necessary if Nico doesn't want to just throw players under the bus. Say like Uzuni's got to score,
Mhm.
right? Vasquez has got to finish his chances. I think he's being nice and dancing around that
Mhm.
because he probably knows that's not how they like to be managed, how they want to be spoken about. Um, to that point, rather than saying like admitting yes, our finishing sucks, we need to finish that, which luckily Gallagher did for us. He's saying all the other things, right? We're creating chances. Our XG is fine, right? The strategy is working the way we want it to. We're just not seeing the goals. And I think for me, you know, when I pose this question, that's without goals, I feel like the coaching staff is forced to rely on everything else
Mhm.
as you know to reference as like this can work, it should work.
Yeah.
It's just not. And you know, at the end of the day, our patron saint Josh Wolf let us know that goals change games, right?
Mhm.
And when we're not scoring goals and we're not earning points as a team, you can't really point at anything else, especially when the defense has struggled recently. Other than like, hey, we're creating chances and trying to, I don't know. It's a tough dance to or tough line to walk for the coaching staff, I think, and I do want to acknowledge that because I can just be frustrated all day, but like they have to walk the line of like validating the fan base who is
Mhm.
also watching the game and seeing that we're not scoring goals, and also keeping their players motivated, saying what we're doing can work, right, and we're creating good chances. Our XG is fine. All these things. I think just as a fan base, we suffered through 4 seasons of that with Josh Wolf because that's all he ever had to rely on, and he
Sure.
did reference it a lot more explicitly. Whereas Nico, generally references like, "Oh, we need to analyze it. We need to look at, good chances are being created, and we can look at this after the game and see like what went well, what didn't." Um, but again, when you're not scoring goals, all you have to rely on are analytics like chances created, XG, chances missed, these kinds of things that are at the end of the day not goals on the score sheet. So
And if
I
I
don't know, man.
may, I just
Please.
think ultimately we've seen it from the beginning that Nico is more of this eternal optimist. He's going to look for, you know, the silver linings in all of these circumstances. And so we can't really expect much else, you know, when the
Mm-hmm.
club brought
Yeah.
Nico on and it was this whole kind of, you know, market, I don't want to say marketing scheme, but it was this whole idea to get him in front of the fans as soon as
Great point.
possible, you
Yeah.
know, because he is this type of manager that's, you know, going to try his best to connect with us as a fan base and understand where we're coming from with our frustrations. Um, but he's never been the type, you know, to go, you know, bad cop, so to speak. He's going to try to defend his players and
Yeah.
defend his style of play. Um, so I mean, we can't be too surprised, you know,
Yeah.
when this all comes to you know, fruition in front of us in these press conferences and stuff like that. And so it's just going to be really interesting how it continues because now I'm
Yeah.
even just as I'm talking about it now, I'm looking less at the coaching staff and more on these players because everyone knows they are proven goal contributors. Why is it
Yeah.
not happening in an Austin uniform? That's the big question.
Yeah.
So,
Something we've referenced, and I'll mention again Phil West's most recent article talking about this post game presser and looking at some stats and the goals that we gave up. We've mentioned this without naming specific numbers, but the touches are just abysmal for our top players.
ghosts,
Um,
yeah.
I think Uzuni had, was it 25 touches, and
And I
Vasquez
think
had
one
35.
in the box, yeah.
Yeah. And that's against Cincinnati. And that's
Right.
a trend. If you look back at Fought Mob game to game, he's consistently in the bottom of the starting 11 in terms of touches in a game. And you look at other players. Evander had 63 or some touches in that game or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two goals contributed to, right? A goal and an assist. You look at Miami, right? Although they're not always successful, they're a good team. They have three of some of the best players in the league, and those three dudes, Alba, Busquets, and Messi, have the most touches game in and game out every single
Sure.
game. The strategy is built around them, and it's generally worked for them, right?
Yeah.
Those are just a couple of examples, but you can look at anyone. Buongo, look at Lucio Costa in years past. Look at Hani Mukhtar. We talked about this with Driussi last season too, of like the lack of touches to our best players. It's just a trend that I don't like to see. $13 million for 25 touches. That seems like a waste of $13 million in my opinion. Unless there's a goal every game when he's getting 25 touches, then fine, it's working.
Right.
But there's not, right? So you got to figure that out. And so I don't know. I can talk all day. Obviously, the defense needs help, and that seems to be maybe a coaching issue and maybe a personnel issue. Just lack of speed on the back line, like we've seen for years now.
Yeah,
there's little things that can be focused on that just we're not seeing get better, and that's frustrating as a fan. So we need some goals, guys. We need to figure this out. Hopefully, New Mexico, we got a goal in Cincinnati. Like, carry that momentum. Let's make it more a streak of games straight with goals scored. Let's take a quick break. Yeah. And then we'll come back and look ahead and hopefully be a little more positive looking at Atlanta and Vancouver.
Yo, Lobar, I was looking at your memento from the game last Saturday, and that picture was fire, dude. Why don't you talk to the people and tell them about their new favorite app?
For sure, man. Memento is your sports scrapbook for Austin FC. Your games, your stats, your scores, a memento for every moment. Every memento is yours to personalize. Add your photos from Q2, tag the homies, and relive your unique experience. Every memento is packed with stats, so watch as your sports history grows as you add a memento for each game. From Austin FC to NWSL and NCAA to the Premier League, NFL, and NBA. Track your fan experience from the palm of your hand.
Help the pod out by downloading Memento today. Follow the link in our description or on our socials to start tracking your mementos. Thanks.
And we're back. Atlanta United visits Austin FC this Wednesday, so let's talk about it. This ATL United match, first and foremost, I want to note that as of Monday, MLS announced the kickoff has been pushed to 8 p.m. So everyone, take your time wrapping up work and dinner before heading to Q2. 30 minutes extra. Hopefully it's not as hot by the time the game ends, but it's still supposed to be in the mid to high 90s. So drink your water, put on the short shorts. Let's get it. Going back to the game, though, Atlanta enters this matchup in the midst of a 6-game winless streak and has only bagged 4 goals in that stretch. Paul, do you think Austin can capitalize on home field advantage and return to winning form against an equally struggling opponent?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is it has to, man. And arguably the first really big, I say really big, but this is like what I would consider the first must win for Austin FC in 2025. Because like you had said before, we're in a tough stretch, haven't really proven our worth in terms of goal scoring. And I look at Brad Guzan and I rub my hands together, because I'm like, this clown lets all the most comical goals in. And, if now we're starting to find some rhythm in terms of, we've gone 2 games where we've at least scored a goal. Granted, one of those was a PK, not from open play, but we've got to feel it, this coming match against Atlanta. And so I go, this has to be a guaranteed 3 points against a struggling Atlanta side. But knowing that this is the MLS and knowing that when 2 struggling teams go at it, it can get kind of chippy. And so not fully expecting the dub here, so I don't, disappoint myself, but it's got to happen. Yeah. Fuck.
No, I hear that. We're kind of just hopelessly hopeful, Man,
you
just got to make it happen, please. Let's make this happen.
Yeah.
I think, again, I mentioned our last six matches, we have 4 points ourselves. It's not like we're in sterling form either. So, we're being handed a golden opportunity here to try to make something out of this, to continue this momentum in the Open Cup game. Not a horrible performance in the grand scheme of things on the road against a top club. You got to make something happen here. I'm starting to think the home field advantage doesn't mean as much to Austin as it may have 2-3 years ago. Just looking historically. At our club record.
And the numbers bear that out, right? I think their points per game at home versus on the road, it's negligible, man. There's not really
Yeah.
one, but
But I mean, I hate to say like we're doing our part as fans, but we're doing our part to create a raucous environment. I don't know if that shoots us in the foot at this point where like opposing teams come in and they want to show out in front of us to talk shit or whatever.
sure.
That, when other teams score, they surely have a good time flaunting about it. But, I think just Austin needs to take advantage of these exact scenarios. If you have an opponent that's struggling that comes to your home, your 77 game streak home sellout stadium, like you gotta take advantage of it. So I'm hoping so. I don't know, but to your point you make, like we're infamously known as Catapult FC here in Austin, right? It's almost like our club is the perfect opponent for a struggling opponent to right the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've seen the trend, and we mentioned this already, like the quick counterattack thing has become a successful formula to be Austin, Vancouver, Houston, El Paso, all having success doing so, even, Cincinnati in some circumstances. What can Austin do to rewrite what has become a troublesome script?
I think the way we opened up against SKC to start the season off with 3 points, and how we started against San Diego to get the first multiple goal game at Q2 for the season, those have to be the blueprints that we follow and look at to replicate that success against a struggling, leaky defense in terms of Atlanta. And then also looking ahead to Vancouver, which I've already kind of resigned as, points dropped.
We'll get there.
But I'm just saying that like this is the way that we got there, and those 6 points against SKC and San Diego, like that's how we do that. But realistically speaking, I know that there's going to be some rotation in these next 2 games. I'm looking at, someone like, Riley Thomas, who has yet to really feature for Austin FC. I think this would be a great opportunity for him to get some minutes in the league. I think Nico Dubrsarski should continue to get more extended minutes in the league as well. Someone that I'm a little bit concerned about, quite frankly, is Basard Sabovic, man. He has not proven to be the midfielder that a lot of us were expecting. And that's me being generous, because I think from looking at Houston, looking at like El Paso was a really rough game for him, it felt like. And then also, for the most part at Cincinnati as well, struggled to connect really, with the rest of the midfield and the attack. But I don't know, man, that's one to look out for. And also, just in terms of how the Heat is doing. And we know that, the likes of Svatak and Savovic, they might be struggling a little bit with the acclimation. So just managing their, recovery is going to be a big part for, these next 2 games.
Yeah, all great points, man. So many, I want to talk about all of them, but I'm having to pick and choose here. I think the big question mark for this team has been the midfield, the central midfield specifically. And without Owen Wolff, it seems like the midfield's lost. I think Ilya can do a good job of, countering some of the poor performances that Savovic may had, or, the lack of impact that maybe Diego Rubio has in some games, where he can at least like cover for them and just say like, okay, midfield didn't lose us the game maybe, but they didn't earn us anything. But without Owen Wolff, it's starting to look, frustrating. And I know when we signed Robert Taylor, who, already picked up an injury just 1 game in, maybe that's the Heat, who knows? But, before he joined and we were about to have a plethora of wingers, I was looking at Uzuni as a potential option in the attacking midfield, right? And say like, great, maybe this is a way we can get him some more touches, a way we can, elevate the quality of the midfield. I'd feel pretty comfortable with like a Ilya, Owen Wolff, Uzuni midfield in terms of like potential quality. I know we haven't seen that play out at this point, so who knows how it would actually work on the field. But on paper, I feel okay with that. But with the, with Robert Taylor down now, and it just doesn't seem likely. And Uzuni's been playing striker more than anything at this point with a full midfield. Anyway, all that to say is, I think we're seeing that counterattack become the easy answer to beat us. And I think a lot of that comes through how reliant we are on our fullbacks to contribute offensively. I hate to harp on the touches piece again, but if you look at our team week in and week out, Bidu, John Gallagher, Kolmanich, those guys are week in and week out getting the most touches on our team outside of, possession heavy games where it's Julio or
Sure.
Heinzike. I don't really count that. And, that has shown flashes of doing well. You get Jean Kolmanich when he's feeling himself and he starts slinging in those back post crosses. I'm not going to be mad at that. But going back to the lack of touches a guy like Uzuni is getting, I think if we really want to stop that counterattack from just destroying us, we need to see a solid defensive back line, right? Where it's not just two slow center backs holding it down with the fullbacks playing pretty high or very high in some cases, but have a guy like John Gallagher that's staying back, that can, outrun or keep up with the counterattack and squash things so everybody can catch up. And I think that relies on some shifting in tactics offensively. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think if we just have more numbers dedicated to stopping the counter, maybe that means giving guys like Bukhari and Uzuni the ball more in kind of the center of the field spaces where they can run with the ball and orchestrate from the midfield, like a Cole Palmer does, for Chelsea, where he's playing inverted a lot and able to move freely throughout the midfield as he sees fit, and we keep possession that way in Chelsea. Maybe we see something like that so that we can have a dedicated 3-4 guys that are always there to stop the counter. Will that work? Who knows? But clearly what we're doing isn't working. So I think you need to do something to bolster that defense, which means maybe take the ball out of the fullback's feet offensively and put it into somebody else's to where they're taking those touches and somebody's dedicated to defense a little bit more. Anyway, but we'll see. I mean, we rocked that 5-3-2 against Cincinnati, and that seemed to help a little bit. I know in the attack, Paul, you made the point that it was more of a 3-4-3 with the fullbacks going, or at least one of the fullbacks going up to make make a line in the midfield on the attack. But that seemed to help a little bit. Just Evander's Evander, and that happened. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it's Evander, but also it's our finishers not finishing, right? And so
yes, right.
We can generate all these chances until the cows come home, man. But if we're not finishing those, like, that's where the struggle is, like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we are being creative in the way that we're trying to generate these chances, whether that's from a 4-4-2, excuse me, or like a 4-3-3, more general direct approach. But even with this 5-back situation that translates to a 3-back and then advancing John up or Jean for that matter and keeping Biro, in the back line, we're generating the chances. You hear this time and time again, but we've got to start finishing, man. Like, that's the only thing, And so to rewrite that script, bro, it's that, finish the fucking chance.
Right.
Sorry.
You finish and teams have to start committing defensively themselves, and they can't counter as much because they have to stop you. I mean, Atlanta is bad this year, right? They're on 10 points. They're not scoring much
right.
in the
and the road form is rough, like bad. So,
but I think they still on paper scare me because you get Almiron and Loth running, Latte Loth just running against a team that can't stop a counter to save their life. That's a good opportunity for them to get some momentum, right? Get an early goal and start feeling themselves a little bit in front of a crowd that doesn't want them to feel themselves at all, and that'll help them, fire them up. So I don't know. It still worries me, right? That's just the byproduct of poor form. Let's get to predictions, and so we can keep this moving. What do you predict the score being at final whistle on Wednesday?
I've got 1-0 Austin FC. That's trauma speaking. I'm sorry.
I know.
But
that's you trying to check another one of those preheated takes off. Like, yep, nailed it.
Yeah, right. No, but ultimately, man, I laugh, but I can't in good faith, say anything different right now, bro. It's just I think for me it's one of two extremes, I guess you call it at this point, and it's sad that a 2-1 victory is an extreme, but I think it's either a 2-1 victory for Austin where we keep the momentum. Sure, Atlanta gets a goal, but we win, or like a 0-0 draw. Like, I think it's going to be one of those two. We're either
two horribly attacking teams attack horribly,
Right.
or we break through and get a couple goals somehow, and we win this game barely.
Yeah.
Let's look at Vancouver, and we don't have to spend too much time on it, just given last matchup's result. Vancouver will look to continue their blazing form across all competitions and make quick work of Austin this weekend. The Whitecaps are undefeated in 11 matches and will be the better rested team going into this Saturday's matchup. What are your expectations for this game?
My expectation is to get a good picture of Brian White, from my position in the supporter section, so I can frame that and keep it by my bedside table.
Remember his great season.
Yeah, because granted, he scored against us already plenty of times, but they are a buzzsaw, mind you. Their match against LAFC, for Sunday night soccer was fantastic. LA early 2-0 advantage, and then they're able to equalize off of a Brian White brace.
Yep.
I just need us to not lose 5-1 at home against this team.
Yeah. For me, I need to see some defensive grit. I expect some, redemption from that matchup. I don't think that means we win necessarily.
Sure.
But I need to just see some redemption and be like, we held them to a goal.
Yeah.
Great. Prove that you can stop, like you called it, a buzzsaw of an offense.
Yeah.
Going to predictions, I'm predicting a 1-0 loss, and this will be my first predicted loss of the year for Austin. Which
Welcome,
I hate
bro.
to do, but
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I've got 2-0, maybe going to 2-1 even. We might score. I'm going with 1. Just
That's
to
nice.
keep the trend going, obviously, but theirs will be more, but it cannot be more than 5.
Yeah.
So 2-1 loss is what I've got.
I'm going to I'm not going to be mad at that. No matter the outcome, it's going to be one of those like cut matchups. We're El Paso, they're Austin.
Yeah.
Like if we get anything, I'll be like, oh shit.
Right.
My
exactly.
expectations are pretty low for what can happen with this game. So, but we need to show out versus Atlanta and prove that we can beat teams below us.
That's the one that we need to circle for sure.
Exactly. So we'll see.
Right.
Let's get to stoppage time and close this episode out.
Let's do it.
Looking at MLS first, Minnesota United smack Inter Miami 4-1 at home. We hear after the match that Julian Gressel shared with his new club that Old Knees FC Miami has a good 30 minutes in them before they're gassed. And I think it was the 31st minute when Minnesota scored. So,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That was a fantastic game. And honestly, Minnesota is looking every bit as good as, a lot of folks were saying that they would be to start the season. Tani O'Shea, man, like that dude, I'm so glad we picked him up for best ball because like he knows how to hold it up. He knows how to distribute. And it's frustrating because I look at someone like our Brandon Vasquez and everything is very similar except for the fact that when he shoots the ball, it goes in. Brandon, somehow it doesn't. So just one of those things. That's that's how football goes. But honestly, good for them beating the shit out of Miami. So good on them.
Yeah. It was a great game. It was funny to see that quote after the game, just of Julian Gressel, telling his team like, "Trust me, they got 30 minutes, and we can withhold the storm. We'll win this one." And he was right.
Yeah.
The only thing I was sad about looking back at the scoreline was that Oluwaseyi didn't contribute to any of the goals.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those games where it's like, oh, 4 goals? Surely our guys got there.
Hat-trick.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else. I think Longwane scored 1.
Yeah, he had a good goal.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just and then David Beckham in the comments of Minnesota United's Instagram trying to be like, win with grace, guys. It's like, all right, bro. Calm down. Don't you have a whole Netflix documentary like hyping yourself up? Chill, bro.
Right.
Move with grace, my ass. Staying with MLS or World Footy in the context of MLS, 16 MLS clubs rank in this year's top 50 most valuable soccer clubs, just released this week. Austin FC ranks 23rd in the world at a value of $865 million, sandwiched between Newcastle United and Aston Villa, and that ranks them as the 6th most valuable club in MLS. Thoughts on this?
Cool, man. I
Right,
I
dude.
I never know how to fucking like I don't know how to
Bro,
respond to these things, man, because it's like, what does that do for me as a
I
fan,
know.
bro?
I
I'm
know.
sandwiched between two, Champions League sides, bro. That's great. And my team can't score for shit in open play. So like what the fuck does that mean? But
No,
I guess a
I
couple of
have the
people
same.
up top, like are making money. Good for them, bro. Fuck.
Yeah, I had the same exact thought. It's like, okay, that's
Sorry, I don't know
cool.
why that pissed me off, but
No. I'm in the same boat because I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, that's cool to see that, the only professional club we have in Austin like is valued this high. I think for the city and the market and like
Sure.
the city's potential to attract another,
Yeah.
professional team in any sport, that bodes well for us, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think a big reason for that is we're ass. We've been nothing but shit, and we've done nothing to earn that valuation. We haven't won
Right.
anything, except for runner up in 2022 in the Western Conference. I was excited for that. I love my club.
Yeah.
I say this endearingly,
Right.
but like, what have
Always.
we done to be worth 865 million other than be in America, in Austin, Texas, and a part of this MLS 3.0, whatever we're at, 4.0, whatever we're in now.
Closed,
Um,
system. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, it's just one of those things like that's dope because it's my city, but also, huh?
Right.
Like anyway, let's look at NWSL. Houston Dash, bro. Comeback. Don't call it a comeback. They earned their second win in 3 games. We'll get to that in a sec. San Diego Wave, my club, they dropped 2 points at home after Portland tied the match, a 1-1 result in a stoppage time penalty. Let's start with
That
Houston
was a bummer.
Dash.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah, man. So Maggie Graham is her, dude. The rookie showing out for the city, and that was a tricky one against Seattle Reign, but good for them earning their second win. It's going to be like that pretty much. It's how it always is for the Houston Dash. You're going to get your one win every couple of matches, and then
Yeah,
kind of just languish in the bottom third of the table, and it is what it is. But it's good. It's good when the wins come. So
for
I was
sure.
happy
For sure.
on Mother's Day, no less. So shout out to all the
Exactly.
moms.
Exactly. And then on the San Diego side, shout out Kimi Escanio, 17-year-old phenom, scoring in the 6th minute to give us the lead. But first half red card did eventually shoot us in the foot. Although San Diego held their own in this match. Unfortunately for them, they made a pretty heavy foul in the box right at the 95th minute, 95-0-0
Yeah.
of 5 minutes of stoppage, and then Portland ties it up in the 98th minute to tie the game, and that was the final whistle right there.
Yeah.
So that was tough to see. It's like, oh, you were 1 second of just like deflect that shot,
Right.
game over. But instead, you hit somebody's knee. So, but with a early red card, we've seen other teams be worse after getting an early red card, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I'll take a point against a solid team. Looking internationally, Brazil confirmed Real Madrid manager Carlo Ancelotti as national team boss. Real Madrid are rumored to have tapped Bayer Leverkusen's boss, Xabi Alonso, to replace him. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Whoever, I think that was Bruce Arena that was talking about, you need a nation or, local born
national.
manager to manage your national team. Respectfully, Bruce, fuck right off, because you've got the eyebrow about to do craziness. With Brazil's team. Going to be really interesting to see that. But and then for Xabi Alonso, obviously to possibly go back to being a Galactico and managing the club. Going to be really interesting to see how he improves this side that greatly disappointed in 24-25. So going to be interesting, but.
Yeah, big names moving around, and
how it is, brother.
Yeah, we have Nico Esteves. So,
fuck.
European Cup finalists are confirmed. Inter Milan, shout out, league correspondents, versus PSG for the Champions League. Tottenham versus Man United for Europa Cup, and Chelsea versus Real Betis for Conference League. Who takes it all? Let's focus on Chelsea, bro. Inter Milan wins because that's more fun content for us.
Sure.
Man United obviously wins because Tottenham can't win anything. What happens with Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea are going to take this, and give Anthony the biggest
I was
spin
gonna
of his
say,
life, bro.
yeah,
It's going to be fantastic. And then also, what's his name? Cucho Hernandez, bro. Like,
yep.
everyone's going to see the fraud he is, bro, against,
The MLS
Caicedo. Oh,
merchant.
my God.
Yeah,
Can't
it's
wait
gonna
to
be
pocket
dominated.
this, man. But yeah, anyway, all that to say, Chelsea, going to be a good matchup.
Yeah.
So,
Remind me too. These are all single games, right? No,
yeah, no double leg
no double
situations.
leg.
No, these are just straight,
All three of
to
these
the death.
winner take
Yeah,
all.
extra time,
Cool.
PKs,
It's gonna be exciting, man.
Yeah,
All
it'd
at
be a
the
good
end of
time.
this month, if I'm not mistaken, like the
Correct.
last week or so of May, for all three.
Mm-hmm.
And by that point, we'll know, in the case of like Chelsea and others, if we're moving forward to which tournament will be in next year, right?
Yeah.
We'll know if we qualify for uh,
Champions League.
Champions League or Europa or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's exciting final stretch, bro.
Yeah, man.
Second to last point here. Barcelona complete the Clasico sweep on the back of a 4-2 result in the return leg of Del Clasico. Thoughts on this?
Bro, fuck Madrid. Honestly, I'm so happy that Barca is like, kind of coming back up into the form and the prominence because as a Chelsea fan myself, it's fuck both these clubs, but ultimately, Madrid, I wish I could take a jersey and just wipe my ass with it.
Bro, why not?
But I mean,
Hit the Pulga and grab one and just,
right,
they got him
right.
at the
No,
corner.
in all seriousness, though, it's good for Barca, Hansi Flick, and that whole squad, Lamine Yamal, and
Yeah,
those
you mean
blonde
Lamal is
locks,
good.
bro. He's him, dude. So
Yeah,
yeah,
phenom. Yeah,
that's it.
it's exciting to see, Yamin Lamal lead this team to success, right? When it's such a storied rivalry, obviously two storied teams, just the next chapter of what that looks like.
Yeah,
It's fun just to start that drama. You got beat by a 17-year-old twice. Now
yeah.
what? Like, does it work for you next year? Let's see. How do you combat that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's close it out as always with Chelsea. So Chelsea are dangerously close to falling out of Champions League contention after a tough loss on the road at Newcastle. They're currently tied in points for fifth with Aston Villa, if I'm not mistaken, and they're just ahead on goal differential, whatever tiebreakers.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I mean, there's what happened, and then there's what I want to say.
Ooh, is it appropriate? Let's do that one.
I mean, have I said anything inappropriate in this podcast? No. I think, in
I
all
don't know.
seriousness, looking at the match result only, I think Nico Jackson did us not a solid by,
Yeah, elbowing Homeboy in the head.
hitting homeboy in the face, earning that red card. But I think if we're looking at Chelsea's season as a whole, there have been clear moments across the season where we didn't pick up points where we should have.
Right.
And ultimately, it's not going to be down on Nico solely if we miss, Champions League qualification.
Right.
But that's what people want to talk about right now, and so let them speak. But I know who's to blame.
Right. Well, don't say it because Lojo will be sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough end to the season. The final few games, and we get the red card right when we got Nico back. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
he's going to miss the second to last game, in a stretch that matters for us.
Yeah.
Who do we have at striker at this point? Nkunku, who doesn't play. So like we're at that point in the season where it's make or break, and these little mistakes are going to be
Yeah.
big in deciding what happens there. So it's frustrating, but I think we were chatting about this before the episode, the three of us in our little chat talking about Chelsea, and maybe it's best that Chelsea gets Europa League this year. I think you said that, and that's a take. So
Yeah.
maybe it'll all work out. But young team, lots of room for growth. Some beautiful standouts in Caicedo. Enzo's had a great year. Obviously, Cole Palmer's him still.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out Chelsea. At least they have points. They're
No,
doing
for sure.
something. Shall we?
Let's do it, man.
All right. We appreciate y'all kicking it with us on this week's episode of the Verdependent Podcast. I'm Logan Bartlett. You can find me on Twitter at LobarBHLM.
And I'm Paul Fletes, and you can find me on Twitter at PaulAndrewFC. Government name.
Government name. Keep the chatter going online by following at the Verdependent on socials. And before we leave, we'd like to remind you again, if you haven't done so already, please consider liking the podcast, leaving a review, subscribing to it wherever you listen to them, and sharing these episodes with your friends. It all helps. We're having a solid year of growth because of y'all, and we want to keep that going because it's a season of change, and we want to keep this momentum running. So season 5 for us, it's our 3rd year, and we want to keep rocking it. So
yeah,
we appreciate y'all. That's an episode. Peace. Oh, why are you screaming at me?
Oh my God.